You cannot see it because it's out of frame, but in the beginning I get her into the play area and away from the herd with the nose target. This video is mainly about cue control, and is cue control compatible with Intrinzen play? And yes, I say it is. And I'm gonna show you and explain to you why I think that is. One of our cues is the rear, and for me it's very important that this is on cue because it can get dangerous. A less important cue is one that you can see, that you just saw with the trotting and cantering, and I have different voice cues for that. These are more suggestions, so I don't really need them to be perfect, but I do practice them a lot, and she's still allowed to move in any way, like what kind of trot rhythm and what kind of canter rhythm. I would even encourage her to move as variable as possible. Of course I want to keep that. I do like if she listens to the voice cue, and that is mainly because I want to transfer that to riding, not because I want her to have perfect gaits. With this rear that you see there, the cue was very subtle. For the rear I have the arms and body up, and I also have the arms and body sideways, and this one was more of a rear that went upwards, but I still clicked it because it technically was a rear cue. Usually when she rears off command I would not click that because then it can get dangerous. From a classical clicker training point of view, she didn't properly react to the canter signal. Her reaction was a bit delayed. My canter signal is the kissing sound and my trot signal is a clicking sound. Because I thought that she was going to canter, I gave the signal, but she wasn't quite ready. And by the way, I am aware that a lot of Intrinzen people don't call it cue but clue. I wouldn't say that is fair to them here because I do use more precise cueing. For us, I would say the rear and the hold are definitely cues, while the sideways is more of a clue and the gate changes are something in between. Basically, I want cues where safety is needed, so the hold and the rear are on cue so that she doesn't hurt anyone. Whereas when it's about her moving in some certain way, this is much more free. I don't want to restrict her movement, I just want to make suggestions. In the end, with those, the horse decides, of course. The change of gait cues, they are really nice and they help us a lot, but I also only give them, or most of the time only give them, when I already have the feeling that her energy shifted and that she's about to go into that gate that I'm gonna ask for. And sometimes it might be that I ask for the gate with my voice cue and she will actually react to it because I gave that cue, but she's also very autonomous and she will not go into the gate if she doesn't really want to. I think this is something that Steiner might have said at some point, which is that his goal is the horse's goal, and I don't really know how he implements this, but this is what I think of when I use this kind of cue control, because I rarely give the cue when I think she's not at all ready to do that movement, and that is mainly just about reading her body language and reading her energy levels. It's more about, I think she might want to do this, so maybe I can tell her, yes, I think this is a good idea, and if she doesn't react to it, that's not a problem at all. I try to avoid those situations because in the end, cue gets stronger if you actually get the in quotations right response, but it's not a big deal, and she also gets treats for something else, or different behavior that is asked afterwards if the cue is not taken. The reason why I would say this kind of training still counts as Intrinzen is because Quix has a lot of freedom to show me what she wants to do. Sometimes she starts panther walking and offering things, and I offer her things as well, and I try to keep it as variable as possible. I do gait changes, I do backwards, which, by the way, she is very good at this cue, but it's not super important to me. We also do sideways, crunches, and other sessions we use targets, the seesaw, yeah, all sorts of things. This situation is a great example of what I mean when I say that I cue the gaits that I think she's going to choose anyway, because right after the trot cue I realize that she's about to canter, so I give the canter cue. I want to mention that I think it is very important to be cautious about people that use a lot of cue control and say that it's Intrinzen, because it's definitely important to not shape the horse. Otherwise, you don't get the authentic movements. This, of course, includes me as well. Be critical of the cue control I talk about, and look at this video and make your own judgment about whether this horse still has movement autonomy. Yeah, and speaking of variability, at this point in the session I noticed that I had been doing sideways movements on the right side of my body, so she was on my right side, and this is my default, but it has also become her default because my feeding hand is my right hand and this is just easier for me. But then I noticed, yeah, well, if we're gonna continue some sideways movements, we gotta switch it up. These breaks are very important to me. I really like to play this game where she gets a bit of a break and just eat from the ground until she joins me again. And also, now my favorite cue is coming up, or one of my favorite cues, which is stop at a distance. She knows this as a voice cue when I'm next to her, but at a distance she still kind of needs the body language. Yeah, and that's already the session. She gets some treats on the ground and her finishing word. So what do you think? Is cue control compatible with Intrinzen?